Hey there. Nerve Nerd here. It's bug time. This is my Totoro shirt. Um, well, I didn't have a lot to talk about, so I wanted to maybe kind of come up with something on the fly here. Um, so I grew up in Texas. Still live in Texas after a brief foray in my young adulthood in the state of California. I came back to Texas. Um, One of the things about Texas is that Texas is a popular place for people who like to hunt wild game. Whether it's dove hunting during dove season, whether it's deer hunting. A lot of people have their own cabins, their own deer leases, their own sort of herds of deer that they sort of feed and maintain on their property, and then they go out, sometime in the summer and they'll spend some time hunting. Um, and there's a lot of fishermen here too. A lot of people that like to go do all types of fishing, fly fishing. Like to go out into the Gulf and do sport fishing and stuff. I've got an uncle that does that out in California too, and he's won some awards and stuff doing that, trophies and whatnot, various competitions. But it's not really a thing that I do. And what I what I do for a living right now is I help hunters do their hunts abroad in other countries. Places like Africa, New Zealand, Spain, Argentina. Um, when the itch is not good enough to scratch at home, you go and do it elsewhere. Plus, I mean, there's some amazing animals out there in the world. That's one thing that's really cool about my job is I learn a lot about these animals everywhere else. But I was talking with one of these hunters on the phone because that's part of my job is to talk to them and do all the things, help them prepare for their trips, help them do all the things when they get home, help them get their trophies back. That's what you call the game that they've they say the word is harvest. But we were basically talking about hobbies, and I was talking about how, this whole hunting thing was never my thing. I may have grown up here in Texas, but never. I think I went with some of my ex-wife's cousins once, and I have fired a gun, but I've not shot and killed anything ever. And I grew up on like Bambi, and if you grow up and that's your exposure to hunting, then your opinion of it is relatively negative. So it's not a thing that ever turned into a positive hobby for me. So it's not a thing. And I was talking to this hunter about how I've never really done that. It doesn't really appeal to me. And he was like, "Well, you're interested in something, right?" And so I said, "Yeah. I'm more of a music and arts guy." And we got to talking, and he asked me to describe the kind of music I play. And now it's kind of one of the reasons I started doing this YouTube channel is because I was at a loss for how to describe it, because growing up, in a commercial society, everything had a label. You liked hard rock, you liked new metal, you liked alternative rock, you liked ska was a big one, or you liked pop punk. Um, so everything has this label so that it can be sold to you, and also so that anything new can be categorized and marketed to the correct audience and all of that business. And the problem with how I've always approached music is I kind of love all of it. I mean, there's different versions of it that I'm better at. I'm not a hard rocker. I'm not a rapper, obviously. And I'm not, I don't know, I'm not a jazz singer or anything like that. I'm not an improvisationist. So there's a lot of things I can say I'm not, but it became really hard for me in that moment to say, well, what am I then? And also to point at what I've done and go, well, there's no evidence of me being this thing, because it's not really defined. So I had a hard time in that conversation, and I walked away from it being like very, very like, well, what am I then, like, as far as a musician? So that's what the channel is about, is exploring a little bit of that, doing things the way that I want to do them, and also kind of showing off, well, this is what I am, because I don't think you can describe it. Like, because I'm not selling it, and because I'm not in that system of categorizing it to sell to the specific audience, um, there's a little bit of freedom in that in a weird way. So I can do well what I'm doing now, which is just what I want, and B, you know, a love song, a ballad, uh, a goofy, silly pop song. Like I can just do things that I like because I like them, and the other side thing about that that I'm trying to discover at the moment is, well, what does that mean I want to do when I start generating this stuff on my own? When I start writing my own songs, because I've written songs before, but it's like, for me, I get this idea, this thing I want to communicate, and so I sit down and I do that, and it doesn't have, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily have a style that relates to the next thing. It doesn't have a style that connects to anything I've done before. It doesn't have a theme necessarily that I've done ever before, if that makes any sense. Um, but I think through the process of doing this, I'm learning a lot. Like when I sit down to do my version of a certain jingly jangly tune, well, I don't jingly jangly, but I find, oh, I do this, and this is the kind of thing I really like, and I keep finding myself doing things. Like I can hear sometimes in different songs when I do like an arpeggio. That's what it's called when you take a chord and you break it into its components and just play one note at a time. The way that I play an arpeggio, a specific arpeggio of a specific chord, shows up in multiple songs. That as the song is moving through its melodic journey or whatever, it hits on the chord that was in another song, and I do it the same way, even though it's not necessarily played that way in the original version of the song, because it's a thing that my ear and my style does. So like you find that stuff out, and I inadvertently got into Primus the other day, which not a band that I've ever really been into. I definitely missed the boat. I wasn't ready for that kind of thing. Although it's kind of funny. I always liked goofy music, and I just wrote Primus off as goofy music and just said, well, they're a little too goofy for me because they're also off this weird tangent melodically and thematically that I just can't. I wasn't old enough to understand when I was a kid, I guess. That's like this weird place of like, what if Monty Python formed a band? It would be something like that. And if they tried to actually successfully promote music, and it's funny because I like things like Devo, going back, and anything Mark Mothersbaugh has done, and I like lots of other weird things that most people don't, like movie music and like television music, and even, God, I get excited when I hear something interesting in a commercial that's 30 seconds long sometimes. But yeah, so I got really deep into Primus for a minute, and I listened to some of the stuff from Les Claypool about how they got together and formed, and how what was it? He was saying that one of the first things they did as a sort of musical mission was, oh yeah, that's right. He learned how to play Metallica songs. Like somebody gave him an album and said, learn these songs so that we can do them for our cover band or whatever. And maybe I'm not remembering this right, even though I just watched it like 12 hours ago. But the important thing here is not which band he learned, but when a musician starts, one that is even, renowned for being really intensely creative and improvisational and original, they don't necessarily start. Nobody starts fully formed. They don't come out and write the number one single. Primus's first big hit that got them, well, that really blew them up, or their biggest song is one I known as Big Brown Beaver, and it didn't come about until like 2 or 3 albums into their career. They'd done a bunch of other stuff, that hit for whatever reason. But that's the thing that elevated them. Not everybody starts um, from a place where their first album or their second album just like is insane. And often when that album or whatever comes out, they've been playing, they've been gigging in their towns, they've been doing other things. I friends with some people that are in, what I would call state or local bands that, yeah, they may have toured out of state or they may have toured somewhere, but they never really took off anywhere but where they live, or where they're from, or with the people that they went to high school with or whatever. Um, because I've done things the way that I've done, I'm not really like popular with anything, and I haven't done a lot of performing. I've done some, but I don't know. Like the big point of all this ramble is to say, like, I'm in the process of building what I want to do musically, and the whole point is to try and lock down, well, what am I? And I think my answer to that is I just like music. I will do whatever my ear leads me through. It's like musically my life is being led around by my ear and my heart. And I feel like if I continue to let that be the thing that leads me around, then it'll take me good places, because it has done so far. So, at about 12 minutes, I think this is probably enough for now. Didn't think I was going to have anything to say, but I found something. Have a good day.